Well, I was going to tell you the story about how the forget-me-nots got their name. You know the forget-me-not? They're that tiny little blue flower. They grow wild all through my garden. But I heard this story once that there was a shepherd who was out and about following his sheep over the hills one day, and he sat himself down to take a break. He got out his sandwiches and his flask of tea, and then he noticed that down by his foot there was a tiny little blue flower growing. So he bent down and he picked it. He had a good look at it, and he thought it was just absolutely lovely. So he took it and he put it in the buttonhole of his coat so he'd have it with him all day. And then a strange thought came into his head. He didn't really know why, but suddenly he thought the flower reminded him of a key. It didn't really look like a key. It doesn't. But there was something about it. And that idea just wouldn't go away. So, as the day went on, he got up, he'd finished his lunch, and off he went over the hills following the sheep. When another thought came into his head, and that was, well, wherever there's a key, there's usually a door that it opens. So he found himself in front of a lovely rounded green hill with vibrant green grass. And there, standing on the side of it, was a tall stone. And there was something about that stone that made him think, I wonder if that is the door my key flower will open. So he took the flower out of his buttonhole, and there was no sign of a keyhole, but he took the flower and he tapped 3 times on the stone with it. Once, twice, 3 times. And the stone moved. And a long, narrow tunnel into the green hill opened up before him. Well, he dropped the flower there, and in he went along the tunnel. It was dark, and it led further and further into the centre of the green hill. And then suddenly it opened out. And inside there was long tables covered in white linen tablecloths. And they were laid with gold and silver dishes, and piled on those dishes were all his favourite foods. And there were goblets filled with the most wonderful drinks. And down at the end of that long hall, there were 2 thrones, and sitting there was the king and the queen of the fairies. Well, the queen of the fairies, she says to him, "Come in, shepherd, you're very welcome. Help yourself from our table. Eat and drink as much as you want." And so he did, and everything tasted just absolutely wonderful. And when he had eaten his fill, the fairy queen snapped her fingers and the tables disappeared. And she snapped her fingers again and she called, "Music, dancing." And here came the harper and the piper and the fiddler, and the music began. And all the fairy host were dancing, and the whole place was full of music and revelry. It lasted all through the night, and the shepherd joined in with the dancing. When the fairy queen had had enough, she snapped her fingers again, and the musicians disappeared, and the dancers disappeared. And she said to the shepherd, "Now it's time for you to go back to your own place. But first, please help yourself to our treasures. Take as much as you like." And she led him first to one treasure box, And he opened up the lid, and there inside were gold and silver coins. "Take as much as you like." So he filled up his pocket with gold and silver coins. And then she led him to the other treasure box. And when he opened the lid on it, it was full of gemstones, rubies and emeralds, diamonds sparkling in the light. "Take as much as you like. Fill your pockets." So he scooped up handfuls of stones, filled up his other pocket. And when both pockets were full, he said his goodbyes, and off he went, back along that long, narrow corridor. And he was just about to step back out into the light of day when he heard a voice calling to him, "Don't forget the greatest treasure of them all." So he went way back along the corridor as fast as he could, and he started raking through the treasure boxes again to see what was it, that greatest treasure. He took a few more gold coins, he took a few more gemstones, but there wasn't anything in particular he could see there. So off he went back along the corridor, and once more as he was just about to step back out, he heard the voice, "Don't forget the greatest treasure of them all." Back he went. He took a few coins and a few stones out of his pockets to make room for some others, scooped them up, filled his pockets again, and once more along the corridor. And stepping out of the doorway, here he hears the voice again, "Don't forget the greatest treasure of them all." But by this time, he thinks, "Well, I've got all that I can carry. I can't see that there was anything else that was worth more than what I have. I'm just going to go with this." So out he went into the light of day, and the stone slid back into place, and the entrance to the green hill was closed. But he had his stones and his coins in his pockets, heavy and reassuring, as he walked back home. When he got to the gate of his own house, he was thinking of how he would tell his wife and his children about what he had found that day. And he put his hand into this pocket where the coins were. But all he found there was a handful of dried leaves that just crumbled to dust in his hand and flew away on the breeze. And when he put his hand into the other pocket where the gemstones were, and he took it out, and it was just a handful of white chucky stones, and they crumbled to sand, and the grains of sand trickled away through his fingers. And he had nothing to show where he had been all that day. And it was in the days that followed that he suddenly realised what it was, that greatest treasure of them all. It was the little blue flower that he had dropped in the doorway. Sure, if he had picked that up and taken it with him, he could have come and gone from the land of the fairies as often as he wanted, filled his pockets with whatever he wanted, any time, any day. And they say that that's how the flower got its name, the forget-me-not.